Hi everybody, today I'm happy to announce that I will be releasing my column sheet to the public. This is something I made in the summer, but I was kind of reluctant to share with people because I find my columns to be kind of trash, honestly, and I'm not sure if people would find them good or helpful, and I definitely didn't want people learning them column for column and limiting their full potential. So compared, like, you have to find what works for you, right? And you can't just go and learn alec for alec what people do. And a big part of three style is finding columns that work for you. So I'm putting this sheet out there, but I really don't want people to just go learn everything column for column. Try to make up your own stuff. Look at various resources. If you make up something that's better than what's on my list, use it. Like, what's stopping you, right? So I'll be going over some notation first that I use on my list. It's slightly different than some people. As you see, there's no square brackets because square brackets are ugly. That's literally the only reason. So A colon B, A prime, this is common stuff, just without the square brackets. A times 2, this is obvious. But this special notation here is cool because it can represent 5 and 9 movers with the U2 interchanged in the middle, or RE5 movers and all of that in a very special way. And I think it's good to understand columns this way so that you're not thinking about, like U and then U2 and then the U2 cancels with the U prime and just thinking of it like in a weird way like that. This makes it very easy, and it also saved me a lot of time when writing all the columns out. So for a good example, this would be like UR ULDF, U prime, M prime, U2, M, U prime. I think I said that right. But this is a good way to represent it, and you see they're all over the sheet. So you got to get used to that if you're reading this. Other than that, I know multiple columns for some cases, but I try to put one decent suggestion for each of them. What I mean by this is that there's some cases that with experimentation, I found multiple columns for. So some of them would maybe be like, oh, you use a left hand regrip here instead of right hand regrip. And at the end of a solve, sometimes regripping with the left hand can assure consistency. What I mean by this is if I go to UFR, FUL, this is a good example, RDF, I put DR and then whatever the 9 mover notation. Sometimes I use D prime R, sometimes I do L wide prime. So I do that usually based on where my ring finger is, but also if it's at the end of the solve, I'll usually do L wide prime, because I don't have to regrip back to the start. So keep this in mind. This isn't verbatim what I use. I don't know if that's the right use of verbatim, but anyway, that's it for that. Once completed, I'm no longer updating this, right? So I finished this August 19th, and I haven't updated since because that's a lot of work to keep 2,700 columns updated all the time. I'll talk about a part that I may be updating later, but I undoubtedly changed some columns in my head without updating the sheet. And once you get good at 3 cycles and all that, you can do this. You can just know or just decide, okay, I'm changing this column without having to put it on the sheet. And that's what I did. So I'm going to go over just like general sheet stuff. I have my buffers. I use the U face first order. I think it's the same as Max, although different than some other people. This is just personal choice. I found that UR comms and UL comms are better than DF, in my opinion. But that's also partially because I started when DF wasn't really a thing and UF had taken over. So I'm more used to the UF things, and I don't really have past experience with DF. So I had to learn DF for the first time as a 1, 2, 3, whatever, as my 5th buffer. So that's, if you used DF before, maybe consider using that 3rd. I don't know. That's it for this. Something to note, right, is that every new buffer you learn, the column cases go down because you don't have to learn to the previous buffers. So things like this, right, DL, there's like 8 columns total. Into corners, something to note is that I use UFL secondary. I know not a lot of people use this, and I chose this because of front inserts mainly. So things like R, U prime, R prime, and also the pseudo swap includes a U face or includes the UF buffer, which can be useful at times, although it's not something really important. Secondary buffer choice for corners is kind of personal preference, I'd say. UFR is definitely the best, but other than that, it's up to you. There's not that big of a difference in between them. So pick what works for you. Some people really like UBL, let's say, for the parity. Some people like UBR because, I don't know, it's on the R slice. Although I hate UBR, so. UFL is my go-to second buffer, and I like it, although there's some cases that aren't fun. So keep that in mind. But there's some cases that aren't fun for all of them anyway. DFR, DFL, those suck. I don't think I even know all of them. But they're in there. Next, parity. I'll zoom out a bit here. This is usually my go-to oligs are these. As you can see, I use different swaps for some cases because when you have the power of alternate pseudoswaps, if you watch a video, it's bad quality. Sorry, but it explains pretty well, I find. But when you have the power of alternate pseudoswapping, you could just choose whatever two pieces you want to swap in memo when there's parity. So you can force good oligs. So I put my kind of quote-unquote main oligs here, although there's some other ones that are not on the sheet. The alternate ones I use. I find that would probably be too much work to put all of them on the sheet. So keep that in mind. Find your own oligs probably for these. You could do it. It's not hard. I didn't, so this is U-face buffers, right? I didn't include DFR, DFL, because I don't even float there that often, and the chance that there's parity is even less. And usually if there's parity in DFR, I'll just do a set of like UFR plus parity, or what I mean by like UFR column plus UFR parity, or like a combination. I have this other special technique that can save oligs and edges, but that's for another day. Yeah, DFR, DFL, usually I'll just improvise something or, give up on the solve because it happens so rarely. Here I put my flips because I have some cool flips, especially one that I yoinked off of Gianfranco, which is this one, DRFR. I don't use it that often, but because it's rare, but it's cool. It's there. So my flips are interesting. Sometimes I use weird things because I learned it wrong, like UR, DL. I do the first one for, let me zoom in a bit. I do this comm first, followed by this second comm, and that's just like the weird way of doing it. Usually people do this one first and then this one. So it's just a minor difference, but I suggest to you, if you're learning flips off of this list, definitely go check out other people's lists to compare, contrast, find what works for you. And then finally, LTCT ZBL. This is kind of cool. So after learning full floating, I was kind of bored. So I said, why not start to learn or just pick out ZBLs that are LTCTs, like last target plus corner twist. So I went on AlecDB, I think, and picked out a bunch. And I also genned a couple. And I picked the ones that, have the least amount of AUFs and stuff like that is usually not considered in 3x3 sighted solving. I really haven't learned many of these. I think I know 12 or around that number. I'm planning to learn them in the future, but right now I have a lot of work, so I don't want to do that. But they're there. This is something I may update if I find better oligs, because I would use this resource too. The other columns are just too much work to update, considering I could just swap them in my head like this. Although for oligs with like actual oligs, like ZBLLs, I would definitely want to update on the list. So that about covers it. I hope you guys enjoy. And that's it for today. Thank you.